we are officially start eating. Now it's recording. First, I would like to thank Murilo Machado Amaral for him to accepting to replace Mateus today, because Mateus has to say his agenda has a problem for today. And then I thank very much Murilo to accept the invitation, because I will confess that's it's sometimes quite a challenge to find a volunteer to replace a colleague. Okay, but then Murilo, we are very helpful, very happy that you are here. Today, Murilo is going to talk. He belongs to the AES program, as he's going to tell something about the program. But today is going to talk about unveiling the cathode electrolyte interface of lithium-sulfur batteries. Is a topic of wide interest for the Advanced Energy Storage program, and also for the computational material design program, because we are also doing some simulations in this direction too. Okay, Murilo, thank you very much for you to accept the invitation and then to be here today. The stage now belongs to you. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you.
You're ready to go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Murilo Amaral. I am a PhD candidate at the State University of Campinas. I'm doing my PhD in electrical engineering under the supervision of Professor Hudson Zanin. Today, I'm going to talk about this topic, which is unveiling the cathode electrolyte interface of lithium-sulfur batteries. And the summary of this presentation comprises a brief talk about the fundamentals and working principle of lithium-sulfur batteries. And then I'm going to talk about one new cathode material for lithium-sulfur batteries that we have investigated. Next, I'm going to talk about the cathode electrolyte interface of lithium-sulfur batteries. And finally, I'm going to talk about the conclusion. And about the fundamentals and working principle of lithium-sulfur batteries, I'm going to talk first why using lithium-sulfur batteries. And the reason is because sulfur has a high theoretical capacity, which is roughly 6 times higher than the theoretical capacity of NMC cathodes, which are the cathodes that are being used in lithium-ion batteries. Sulfur is also an abundant material. Every year we have many tons of sulfur being produced from oil refining, and sulfur also has a very low cost. And about the working principle of lithium-sulfur batteries, it is a bit different from intercalation batteries like lithium-ion batteries. And here in lithium-sulfur, we have conversion reactions, and a traditional lithium-sulfur battery has a sulfur cathode and a lithium anode. And during the discharge, we are going to have the reduction of sulfur, elemental sulfur, to lithium polysulfides. And we have many intermediate lithium polysulfides which are soluble. They are dissolved into the electrolyte. And the final product of the discharge is lithium sulfide and lithium disulfide, which are insoluble. Then, during the charging of the battery, we have the opposite. We have the oxidation of lithium sulfide to intermediate soluble polysulfides. And finally, we have the oxidation of soluble polysulfides to elemental sulfur. But we have a problem here because during the oxidation, during the charging, some soluble polysulfides, they can migrate to the lithium anode. And as lithium is a very reactive metal, it can reduce them to insoluble lithium sulfide. And this insoluble species can passivate on the lithium anode surface. And this lithium sulfide has a very slow redox kinetics, and we cannot completely oxidize all the lithium sulfide, which culminates in a material loss and consequently irreversible capacity loss. Then one approach to keep the soluble away from the lithium anode and inhibit this shuttle of polysulfides. There is one suitable approach, which is the use of host materials for sulfur, like porous materials such as porous carbon, which include activated carbon and carbon nanotubes, that they can physically absorb the lithium polysulfides, and the conversion reactions are going to happen close to the cathode. And another approach is using materials that have polar bonds, like metal oxides, metal sulfides, which are going to promote chemical absorption of the lithium of the soluble polysulfides. And aiming to investigate new materials as sulfur host, I have investigated the silicon oxide carbide as a sulfur host for lithium sulfur batteries. And now I'm going to briefly talk about this research. For the preparation of the silicon oxide carbide, first I had a polymeric precursor, abbreviated here as TPTS, which is a polysiloxane. And also I had a dicomyl peroxide, which was the cross-linking agent. And after cross-linking the polymeric precursor with the DCP, we followed with the pyrolysis at 800 degrees Celsius under argon flow. And after the pyrolysis, we had the ceramic particles. And after having the ceramic particles, we diffused sulfur into the ceramic structure. And finally, we obtained this composite material, as we can see here in this EDS figure, elemental mapping. And after investigating the composite sulfur infused silicon oxide carbide, we noticed that it promoted reversible capacity for 200 cycles. In the first initial cycles, we noticed a sulfur loss, but after these 5 initial cycles, the capacity was very stable for 200 cycles, and then it was slightly decreasing the capacity retention, but after 500 cycles, the battery was still working properly. And now I'm going to talk about the cathode, about some research that we have done on the cathode electrolyte interface of lithium super batteries. And to investigate the cathode electrolyte interface formed on the cathode surface, we used a spectroelectrochemical cell and we conducted in situ FTIR measurements using this cell. This cell comprised 2 optical windows that consisted of zinc selenide. The anode was lithium metal, the separator was glass fiber, and both the glass fiber separator and the lithium anode, they had a center hole, and on the cathode several pinholes have been performed on it, which enabled the transmission of the infrared radiation, as these measurements were done at the transmittance mode. And after assembling the cell, we conducted the in situ FTIR measurements. The glass fiber was soaked into the electrolyte that you have used. And this measurement was background subtractively normalized. First, we took one background of the sample compartment. We see we took the signals of all the species present in the cell and in the sample compartment. And then we subtracted all the results to track the species that were being formed or consumed during the in situ measurements. As you can see here, the initial spectrum for the experiment was a flat line, and then we noticed some bands that were formed. We noticed here one upward band that was attributed to the formation of new species, which in this case is the cathode electrolyte interface. And we also noticed the formation of downward bands, that means the consumption of species from the system. And in this case, it is associated with the decomposition of electrolyte species. Then, in the chart, we noticed one downward. We noticed that there are no upward bands, as we have subtracted all the previous signals from the discharge. But we noticed one downward band at the same position that we noticed the upward band during the discharge, which is attributed to a partial dissolution of the cathode electrolyte interface. It indicates that the CI, which is the abbreviation of the cathode electrolyte interface, was formed during the initial discharge, but it was not completely established after the charging process. However, we still noticed the presence of downward bands during the charging, in the spectra obtained during the charging process, which indicates that the CI, the cathode electrolyte interface, was being partially dissolved, but the electrolyte decomposition was still happening, which suggests the CI regeneration. Then, in order to track which species were being decomposed for the formation of the cathode electrolyte interface, we compared the resulting last spectrum of the discharge and the last spectrum of the charge with reference spectra of the species that composed the electrolyte. And we tracked here that the downward bands were related to some bands of the electrolyte species, particularly the salts and the solvents. And we noticed that the LiTFSI, the salt, had a high influence, as it was the main source for the CI formation. And the only band that is not related to the electrolyte species is the band attributed to the cathode electrolyte interface, which composed the other species, particularly electrolyte reduced species. And in order to have a deep understanding of the species that composed the cathode electrolyte interface, we conducted X-ray absorption spectroscopy at the sulfur K edge, particularly Zane's measurements. And for these measurements, we used the same cathode material that we used in the in situ FTIR measurements, which is sulfur infused SiOC. And We conducted these measurements in post-cycled electrodes, which consisted of electrodes after 1 and 5 cycles at the fully discharged and fully charged states. And here in the Zane spectra, we noticed in the range from 2450 and 2475 EV, some bands at some peaks attributed to the the formation of lithium polysulfides for both discharge, for the electrodes at both charged and discharged states. And after 2475, we noticed two peaks positioned at 2480 and 2485 that are attributed to LITFSI according to reference measurements that we have done. And it indicates the presence of this salt on the cathode electrolyte interface. And we also, which can be attributed to the presence of this salt in the interface layer, or maybe this salt can be present there because of some remains after, because even after rinsing the cell with some solvents, it may have remained on its surface. However, despite the presence of the electrolyte salt, we also noticed one shoulder before this peak, which according to the literature is attributed to lithium sulfide, which can be lithium sulfate or lithium sulfite. And this species have already been reported in the literature as some electrolyte reduced species that comprise the interface layers of lithium sulfur batteries. Then the concluding remarks of this study is that silicon oxide was investigated for the first time in this study, and it mitigated the shuttle effect. It provided a stable capacity for 200 cycles, and the in situ FTIR results also evidenced that the CI layer is established in the initial discharge of the battery, and it was further partially dissolved, but also regenerated during the charging process. And finally, we could track some species that compose the CI layer, such as lithium sulfite, like LI lithium sulfate and lithium sulfite, that can possibly comprise the CI layer. I would like to acknowledge the funding agents that supported this research, like FAPESP, and also I would like to acknowledge the institutions where this research has been performed. Thank you for watching, and if anyone has any question, please feel free to ask me or contact me.
Okay, now the talk is, thanks very much for the nice talk and introduction to the LiGe2 sulfur batteries. Now the talk is open for questions. We have a lot of time for questions. Okay, then raise your hand to ask the question or add your question in the chat now. Okay, and then I will start to make a question, Murilo. From my opinion, example, how is the efficiency of the lithium sulfur batteries compared to the lithium metal? Can you provide some additional information on that?
You asked about the efficiency of the lithium sulfur battery.
Concerned, how long do you have expectation that is fast to charge, or those batteries can be, to say, the energy density will be higher? What's the big advantage of the lithium sulfur?
Oh, they provide a higher capacity and also higher values of energy density. The theoretical energy density of lithium sulfur batteries is 2,600 watts-hour per kilogram, while the energy density of lithium-ion batteries are significantly lower. However, the practical values of lithium sulfur batteries are up to 600 watts-hour per kilogram, while the energy density of lithium-ion batteries are roughly between 300 and 400 watts-hour per kilogram. So we have an advantage regarding the capacity and regarding the energy density.
Okay. Someone have additional question from the community or not? Tuana?
Hi, Murilo. Thanks for the talk. I have some questions about how you identified the SEI interface. If understood, you can see that you have some sulfur compounds.
Yes.
But can you understand what kind of compound is this? Because you can have like S2, S8, Sn, or you can just see that you have sulfur in the interface.
Well, we have it is according to the technique, but in the X-ray absorption spectroscopy measurements that I conducted, it was done at the sulfur K edge, so only the sulfur species were being tracked. And regarding the FTIR, I conducted some reference measurements. However, FTIR enabled to directly track the molecular changes associated with the CEI formation, but it is a bit tricky to attribute every band to every specific species compound, because the signals when the species is dissolved into that particular electrolyte species, the signal can change, and it's not fair to do the attribution based on some reports that sometimes were done with solid salts materials, which are not going to present the same resulting signal. But other techniques like XPS may be helpful to identify other species.
Okay, thanks, Murilo. We have additional question by John Tivaya. John?
Hello, Professor. It's a nice talk. Yeah, so my question is regarding, yes. So lithium sulfur batteries, yes, it is very advantage in terms of the energy density and then capacity and all, comparatively lithium ion batteries and other batteries. So the main disadvantage is that the settle effect. The polysulfides dissolve in the electrolyte, and that makes the battery volume expanded, and then it becomes instability of the battery. So to resolve that, many materials introduced in the cathode, different additives to make the development improvement in the performance. But still there is a problem in the solving this settle effect. So how good this silicon based cathode material preventing that issue in this case? So that is my doubt.
So you asked about the performance of the silicon oxide in suppressing the lithium polysulfide, the shuttle effect.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there are many different materials that have been investigated for this purpose. However, my research was focused on the investigation of the ceramic materials, like specifically polymer-derived ceramics as sulfur hosts. And there are few materials, like few ceramics reported as sulfur hosts. And this silicon wax carbide that I investigated in this study is among the best ceramics the best polymer-derived ceramics that I have seen. And in this paper, I can share with you, I compared the performance. Are you seeing here?
Yeah.
I compared the performance of the sulfur-infused silicon wax carbide with another cathode material that consisted of a cathode that comprised the only sulfur, acetylene carbon, and which is carbon black, and also PVDF. There are in that other electrode, we didn't have any host material and any additional host material, and without the silicon wax carbide, the battery failed before 300 cycles.
Okay.
I didn't include this supplementary figure in the main presentation, but I can share the manuscript. And
okay. Is there any possibility that study which can show the absorption energy of this cathode material and then polysulfides, so that it can be good absorbate and then it can prevent the shuttle effect?
well, as far as I know, despite the suppressing the shuttle effect, the host materials like the silicon wax carbide, they can mitigate the volume expansion of sulfur particles, because sulfur has a high volume expansion up to 80%, and it results in cracks of the CI layer and also fast dissolution of lithium polysulfides, which accelerate the degradation mechanism of lithium sulfur batteries. And this is another advantage of using sulfur hosts, including the silicon wax carbide that I have investigated.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now I have additional question that was on the chat that was provided by André Navarro de Miranda. He wrote there, "Hi Murilo, thank you for your talk. Why have you chosen to use silicon OC materials? Can you talk more about the properties of these materials?"
Okay, I'm going to come back to this slide.
Yes.
As you can see here in this molecular, like this figure representing the molecular structure of the sulfur-infused silicon wax carbide, we can see that the resulting SiOC, like sulfur-infused SiOC, it has 3 carbon domains, and it is also a porous material. We have done some characterization, like Raman and BT, that confirmed that this material is porous. It has porous carbon, and it also has some polar bands, like silicon oxide bands, silicon carbide bands, and these bands, they promote the chemical absorption of the lithium polysulfides, while the 3 carbon domains, they provide the physical absorption. And in this system, we have the combination of both of these 2 different absorption mechanisms, which promote the additional absorption sites on the on the electrode, which is an advantage while comparing the electrochemical performance of cathode materials that only contain carbonaceous hosts.
Okay. Now we have additional question by Sara Barate. Sara.
Hello, Marioli. Excuse me. Thank you for your nice question. My nice presentation. I'm sorry. My question is about do you know about the latest progress in lithium sulfur battery?
It's hard to say one specific progress, but according to the literature, the latest progress includes the optimization of the systems. Now people are trying to investigate these batteries at lean electrolyte conditions. They are adding a few volume, like a small volume of electrolyte, like they are calculating a ratio that is the electrolyte volume by the
Do you know about the company? This company like...
Yes, I know that there are two startups in the US that are investigating lithium sulfur batteries. One is named Lyten, which is in the state of Nevada, and another is named Zeta, which is, I think, Zeta, which is located in Texas. But there is a lot of research being done with the electrolyte. People are investigating Poorl separators that can inhibit the migration of polysulfides to the lithium anode. There are like many different research related to these batteries. What I have showed here, it is a fundamental research. It is not like
yes. So I think about, as I remember, about 1,500 cycle with capacity retain about 80%. It was a progress in before, but now maybe it get better. Thank you.
Okay, then we have additional question by the Fabio Coutinho Antunes by the chat here. Hi, Murilo. Congratulations for your presentation. Very interesting results. Could you please give us some tips about the possibility to perform our Bruker EIR measurements of earth hydroxide used in cathodes of SOFCs, such as lanthanum, strontium, and so on, cobalt and iron oxides?
Okay. I'm not familiar with the research of solid oxide fuel cells, but I mean that I understand that he is asking about ex situ measurements. He's not asking about in situ measurements, as I showed here. But well, he can reach me. He can contact me later and specifically say which kind of measurements he is interested in performing, and I will be glad in helping him to perform these measurements and how to interpret the results.
Okay. Is there some further question? Okay, they have one question by Rafael Freire. Rafael.
Hi, Murilo. Thank you for this nice talk. I'm just curious about this theoretical capacity. I see that you have a theoretical and a practical one.
Yes.
And the theoretical is higher than the practical. So what hinders you from achieving this higher capacity for this material? And what would be the benefits of achieving that?
Well, in lithium sulfur batteries, like there are many approaches that, as I talked, the people are trying to mitigate the shadow effect. As you can see here, we have some losses during the conversion reactions, as some intermediate species, they migrate to the lithium anode, and it culminates in an irreversible material and capacity loss. And even when we use some approach, like when we use a superhost, like that promotes chemical and physical adsorption, when we use some separators and electrolyte that can mitigate the shadow effect and the material loss, it's almost impossible to totally mitigate the shadow effect. We still have some losses, and this is what causes the difference between the practical and the theoretical capacity. But I have seen values close to the theoretical capacity, and that also showed a reasonable capacity retention.
Okay, thank you.
Is there some additional question?
Maybe I have another.
Yes, there's some
Yeah, I
additional
have
question.
another one. Yeah.
Yes, Rafael,
In
feel
your
free.
slide 15, you showed some shoulder in your spectra.
Yes.
So, but it seems you have another shoulder around 247. Yeah, in this region. So you have
Yes.
any clue what it can be that?
Well, as you can see here, all these peaks that are in the yellow part of the figure, they are attributed to the presence of lithium polysulfides. And in this study, I have seen some papers that tracked the redox mechanism of lithium polysulfides using X-ray absorption spectroscopy, and I also compared it with some results available in the literature. But the focus of this study was the cathode electrolyte interface. However, I compared the results of these peaks attributed to the lithium polysulfides with some results available in the literature, and the shape of this peak matches some peaks reported in the literature attributed to high order lithium polysulfides, like at the order of 6 or 8, while this is for the electrodes at the charged state, while the electrodes at the discharged state show some peaks attributed to low order lithium polysulfides, like at the order of 2 or 4, according to some results in the literature that I compared. Like here, we have different orders of polysulfides, and each order has a different shape. For like the peak observed in the Zane's spectra has different shape for each specific order of polysulfide.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there some additional question? Okay, it's not in the case. I just want to have some few comments. First, I would like to ask for everyone here that is part of the meeting, invite at least 2 of your colleagues that is part of your programs to take part in the meeting, because if everyone here invite 2 additional members, we are going to break records. Okay, and then that will be very, to say, CINE has about 250 members, but we are here with we start with 24, reach 34, we are 30 now. That's one point. In 15 days, we're going to have a new talk, okay? And everyone is going to receive the communication by email. And I recommend that everyone spread the news on your program. Really spread the news. Make sure that everyone is aware what is happening, okay? Meaning that you have a speaker that's going to talk for everyone, is open for scene, okay? Everyone. Okay, then thank you very much for Murilo. And then if it's possible, Murilo, thank you very much for Murilo. And then I would like us to talk with Raissa, if he's here, George and Sarah and Tuana, if they are still here, okay? Again, thanks a lot, Murilo. Very nice talk. And then everyone for to take part here. Thanks a lot.
Murilo, I would like to talk to you. Is possible?
Yes, I want to talk with Raissa and
No.
Sarah.